Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. Today is May the 27th and it's release day of Flesh and Blood's classic battle, Rhinar vs. Dorinthea. That means that today we're going to be spending some extra time going over what this product is, who it's for, why it's here, and how it compares to other games past, present, and future. All that and more. Stay tuned. One-man crew, here we go. Zoop. And engage. Oh, too small. Wow, reversed. Okay. There we go. Got it. Perfect. All right, so now that we're here, we're going to go ahead and show you some other options that we got here. We're going to have a camera here. This is going to let me highlight some of the Rhinar vs. Dorinthea. And you're going to see that this box is definitely a foily dude. That is what we're going to call it. It looks pretty sweet. Now, I want to go ahead and drop in some history about this, and that is not in regards to Mr. History Pack that's sitting here. So stay tuned for my 36 days of History Pack to Uprising. I am excited. You should be excited for that product. But that is not why we're here today. Today we're talking about the classic battles, Dorinthea versus Rhinar. So let's go ahead and jump that back over here. This product, who's it for? Why is it here? Why did Flesh and Blood go down this route? And how do other games compare to this product? So let's start with presentation. Now, this box here is very similar to the setup of the Magic Duel decks, where they kind of have almost that same concave, format. And honestly, I don't mind that at all. It still stands and sits on a shelf that, I talked to some LGSs, speaking of which it was kind of hard to find. So we're going to go ahead and roll to how I managed to even get this one in my hands. I'll be back after you see some of that footage right now.
Today's launch day of Flesh and Blood's Dorinthea vs. Rhinar deck. Let's go to our local game store and see if we can pick up a copy. All that and more on today's episode. Let's go. Of the many local gaming stores that are around Indianapolis, there's actually only a very select few that carry Flesh and Blood at this time. I'm going to one of the stores today that is basically a very good friend of mine, and I like to support their business when I can, so we're going to go see if they have it in stock, and if they don't, we're going to hit up a couple other stores until we get one in our hands. See what it's like to be a player, right? Especially on launch day when you don't know whether or not the store has it, so we're going to find out. Alright, here we are outside of the store, Valkyrie's Vault. Looks like they got their friendly neighborhood UPS guy here. Who knows, it could still be on the truck. Yes!
Chase is rocking the Magikarp shirt today.
Yeah, almost definitely, sir.
So since he's in the back looking for all the different stuff for like Pokemon and Astro Radiance, I figure I'd just go ahead and give you a quick little tour of like this setup. So they have all the games. Obviously some pretty popular board games, which are always fun. They got a bunch of nice design. I like it. Alright, so Game Store 1 down. Sadly, we looked through all his boxes, and I'll insert a photo of the madness that was there somewhere in this area. But sadly, he did not get any, so now we're going to go off to the next game store here in town and see if we can locate some of these wonderful history packs. I'm just kidding. We already have history packs. We're looking for the Dorinthea vs. Rhinar starter. Alright, well, I want to make sure that I put my sunglasses on, and I will see you shortly. This video has not turned out the way I was hoping. So, just got lunch, and now we're going to store number, I think, 4, technically. I called the other one, so I didn't have to drive there, because by the second store, I was like, okay, this isn't working very well. So far, I've called, I think, a total of 5 stores. One of them said it's coming, that it'll be there. One of them put me on a waiting list, because it hasn't arrived. One of them checked their inventory today and didn't have it, which is the one that you'll see in some of my footage today. And now I'm driving about an hour away to go get the very first box from another store, so... Ta-da!
Yeah, I've got like the starter
stuff over there, but yeah.
So you got, oh my gosh, you got plenty of games. You got Pokemon, you got Capcom, Street Fighters, Seven Cross.
Oh, this is for part of Universes.
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen half of those games. So you do that Chilling Reign. Oh, there you go. So you got Everfest, Monarch, Tales First Edition. You do have some Arcane Rising. Interesting. Okay. Ooh. You got some Tales Stars. Oh, you got some MetaZoo up in the corner.
Yep.
Is that, which one is that? Nightfall?
I think so.
And Thieves Forge, Capcom, Dark Masters.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Any idea what that one goes for? Hear ye, hear ye. We successfully have achieved the locating of the Flesh and Blood Dorinthea first Rhinar deck, and now we will go and proceed to open it shortly. Stay tuned.
And we're back in studio here and definitely have it in my hands, so that was an adventure. Yes, it was. Now, this product is targeted at new players. The entire text on the website is all about trying to get this in the hands of people that are new to the game. Now, prior to this Flesh and Blood Dorinthea vs. Rhinar, there were only a couple of ways that you could get into Flesh and Blood. One of those ways was with the free Aria deck that was passed out by some of the LGSs, if your LGS was lucky enough to have one of these. And the Aria deck was just a quick-to-play deck that was free from an LGS. But again, you had to have an LGS that was into the game and had these to hand out. Not every LGS has these. Next on your list is going to be the Flesh and Blood Blitz decks. Now, this is just 3 of the current 7 that I do believe exist, 4 from Monarch and 3 from Tales of Aria. There will be 2 more that are coming out in the brand new Uprising set. Hopefully when those come out, I'll be reviewing those as well. But these Blitz decks were a kind of a convenient way to get into the game. But that said, these Blitz decks, when you open them up, were very basic. Now, the price point was great on these. You did get your hero and all the accompanying cards, but no rules and rule books or playmats, things like that. But functionally, it was a playable deck. Obviously, I'll leave it to the professionals to tell you how playable those decks were. But the product itself, you know, existed, and it filled that gap of not having a starter for players to jump into the game. Much harder to get, but they did come out when the game first released, were the classic constructed decks for the WTR series, which included all 4 of your heroes: Bravo, Dorinthea, Katsu, and oh, poor Rhinar. You know, I'm just kidding, he's over here. Everybody forgets Rhinar. I know, that's the joke, right? But these decks here were, let's go ahead and I think I've opened this one up, were available for players. Again, very minimal as far as the I guess instructional components. It's just a 60 card, you know, or basically a 60 card deck. But you got your hero, got your equipment, and then you got the rest of the deck sitting in here. The only thing that was really interesting, you know, was kind of note is the Katsu was basically both a, you know, a double-sided token plus the kind of unique text that came with these. These decks were, again, kind of something that they sold as an intro, but because they haven't had these available on the open market for a while, you can still get them on TCG Player, but they're not really cost effective, and at this stage they're a little bit, I would say, outdated for the gameplay of today, but they are still unique collector items, and really I do think that they are still relevant to play, and that will be something that we can test later. But realistically, those setups were for what would have introduced you when WTR was first on the market. Now, here's a couple of different versions of the Aria deck. You have the 2018, the 2020, and I believe there's a new 2021. I don't have that, but there would be 3 variations of that deck. The big difference is that there was some updated game text that was in these, but again, all starters that were still available that the LGS would hand you for free so that you could play the game. I've been using this to teach people how to play, and I kept one of these sealed from one of the LGSs that I had that was lucky enough to be able to give me the one that I have today for my personal collection. So back to the classic battles, Dorinthea versus Rhinar. Who's it for, and why did they select the product in this fashion? Well, let's go ahead and open it up and see what's on the inside. Now, one thing to note is that with these style of, items, if they were in a store, the safety tape that's on the side here does give a little bit more, I guess, good, warm, fuzzy feelings that, if somebody's trying to get in this thing to do some nefarious stuff, then obviously, you're going to be able to see that it's been tampered with. But opening it up here, it's just basically a piece of cardboard, and upside down, you'll see that there's just the box. And it is still a pretty slick, cool box. I mean, it's a foil artwork that would look good on a shelf, so we're definitely going to be keeping that available for later down the road. Go ahead and put that back together here. We'll come back to that. The contents do include a 2-player play mat, which we were hoping for maybe a mat like the one I'm on here. But this 2-player playmat is essentially what the LGS has for the 2-player starter kit. So it's huge. Except this one is in paper. The only bad thing about this being in paper is that it won't last forever, but it is a good interim start to learn the rules before you go ahead and purchase a playmat, similar to this one that's on the table here. Next up is the lore book. And the lore book looks like it's split into 2 sections, and you got some cool stellar artwork in the inside of it. But you have the Dorinthea side and you have the Rhinar side. And it reminds me very much of like some of the earlier mangas that I had read back in the day where it looks like part of it was flipped one way and part of it was flipped the other, so you basically kind of had to flip it over and read your story. I think they even did that with some of the Choose Your Own Adventure books back in the day. But it is nice to have something. I would have really liked to have seen some sort of instructional how to play in this, but we'll talk about that in a little bit later. Once you pull out the cardboard, which again, minimalistic packaging is actually a pretty good thing for this product. It means less waste, so they're being very conscious of the environment, which I will give them major credit for doing that. Now I went to my LGS and I paid $49.99 plus tax for this because I couldn't find one in any other store. And obviously, you saw a little montage earlier of what I went through to go ahead and have these in my hands for the review today. That said, let's go ahead and before we dive into these decks, let's talk a little bit of history on some other games that have been popular over the years and see kind of the general structure of what's in those starters compared to what we just opened right here. This is a typical Yu-Gi-Oh starter from what I've gathered. I went ahead and got this a while ago and I've just kind of had it in my collection. Now, what's interesting about this Yu-Gi-Oh starter is when you start comparing the sizes of these, you can notice that it's a little bit smaller. Now, the interesting thing on this is it gives you the deck list on the back of the box, and on the inside of here, it does give you a how to play guide as well as a little bit more information because I have opened another one very similar to this. So, the Yu-Gi-Oh deck has a little bit of a different price structure as well. It's actually pretty affordable, again, compared to the $50 that you get with the Rhinar vs. Dorinthea deck. But again, I believe it's kind of more of a different target audience for the two of them. So while I understand that this has basically just a starter deck, this also has the premium cards that we'll talk about, where they are the cold foils and the foil equipment that's in the deck. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. So you're going to get some blingier type cards, which is awesome. But in this deck here, yeah, you're still going to get some foils, if I remember correctly, based on, you know, kind of the photos on the back here. But you're really getting specifically what they've kind of deemed to be a how to play, but a starter box. But again, it's a different game, so I can't really compare apples to apples. But let's try another one. Next up, Digimon Starter, and you can tell that the Digimon Starter is, you know, essentially about the same packaging as what the Yu-Gi-Oh one was, but they do the same concept where they give you the deck list on the side and kind of give you a little bit of information. So this one's going to have 54 cards. It includes a ready-to-play deck, includes the same, contents are the same in any box. I like that they specify that on this so that they don't have any confusion. The packaging might differ somewhat from the Friday product, blah, blah, blah. When playing the card game first time, please check the rules page on Digimon Card Game's official website. And if I remember correctly, this does actually have a small rule book on the inside of it, but I'd have to probably open it to double check that. I don't remember. Let's find out together. So let's go ahead and open this up. I was wrong. It just has cards, Digimon card game instruction card, looks like a booster pack, and no playmat, and no instructions. So I'll go ahead and put that back in here. But it is cool you get like a booster pack. That was similar to the old Star Wars Decipher card game, which we will talk about at some point in the near future. Moving on from Digimon, we're going to go and jump into another game that's tried and true, Pokemon. And I have a couple examples of this, so we're going to go ahead and select these two right here. And these starters are basically just theme decks. And in this case, of the two theme decks here, one was produced in 2017, one was produced, I believe, back in 2015. They've kind of kept the same concept for many years, but essentially it's the same as most of the other brands. They display the actual contents that are in the box, and then they give you, in this case, a checklist, a metal coin, a 2-player playmat, and rule book, 1 code card to get the digital version, because there's a digital version of Pokemon Online, which is not currently a thing, or I believe ever going to be a thing in Flesh and Blood, but who knows, that may end up changing. So essentially, these have kind of the same quintessential as the Flesh and Blood deck, with the exception that you do get a rule book on the inside of them. But they are intended for new players, and you do get some, like, kind of crazy foily, like that's the Fractal Zapdos and that's the Fractal Lunala. So you do get some, not cold foil cards, but you do get some pretty decent cards, and the prices on these typically are in the $20 range, $15 range, some of them in the $25 range, like when the Charizard's in there and somebody really wants that one. So Pokemon, I would say, again, is on par, but the price structure is a little bit different, and you get a rule book inside there compared to Flesh and Blood. But I will give Flesh and Blood a little bit of credit on the fact that if they don't include a rule book and they point you to the online rules, if something has changed or a YouTube video, that's going to be a little bit more, I guess, environmentally friendly, so that you're not having to worry as much about, antiquated rules that are stuck in a game. Like, I'm pretty sure there's some errata or stuff on these that are not relevant in today. Moving on. A game from the years beyond years ago. World of Warcraft, the trading card game. And I don't quite remember what I would consider a starter deck for them. They call this the PvP battle deck, which, Flesh and Blood's going to have PvP. So we'll definitely be doing comparisons of this when PvP comes out, so that we can kind of understand maybe what's going on. But I believe this to be more of the inline, so we're going to skip this product for now, but, I will just kind of showcase that I like the book style component, and on the inside you would actually have two decks, very similar to the dual battles, so we'll have to go into more depth on these later, but you also get some cool oversized heroes, which, please, Flesh and Blood, I'd like to do this, because that would just be awesome. I would collect every single one of them. So, how did they handle this? Well, this is a kind of a structure deck. You get 60 cards, 1 crafting card, and a rule book. So no playmats in these, but again, this was circa 2010. So we're talking, a 12-year difference. But same concept. It was a starter deck. It was designed to get people into the game. So there's that version of it. And then we have what Flesh and Blood is released today. Honorable mention runner-up, I'm going to go ahead and go back to Pokemon for a second, but these are called Build and Battle boxes. This is more for like a tournament when you're going to be playing like a draft, so Flesh and Blood hasn't come up with something like this just yet, but I believe that in the future, especially given games like the wonderful old Star Wars customizable card game where they had their version of it, which is essentially, a set kind of premium pack that comes with it, which is kind of like a seeded Pokemon pack, and then you had boosters. But again, this isn't a start to play, this is like a tournament kit. So while these are kind of cool, we're not going to compare them as much for this relevant here. And last but not least, and dearest to my heart, is the good old Decipher Star Wars customizable card game. And boy, let me tell you, I have many memories with these here. Let's go ahead and show you what's on the back of these. And this card game did it very different than others. You got 38 randomized cards, so 2 rares, 14 uncommons, 22 commons, 22 fixed cards, which were basically a way to build your deck around the structure of the cards, which again, this is a completely different structured game than Flesh and Blood, where it's hero-centric. But the other thing is you get the large format version 2.0 with comprehensive rules. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen a rule book for Decipher, but it's not for the faint of heart. So inside, the way they had these packaged was you would have your cards that came in just a little divider like this, and then you would get your rule book and glossary. And yes, my friends, yes indeed, that glossary is a chubby wubby. It is 144 pages, printed circa 1998 in good old-fashioned extreme texturoo. Let me tell you, this was the key to playing that complex game. And I will say that even though the rule book is kind of tiny, it's all the catches. But the beautiful thing here is it did explain a lot of the card types. For a new player coming in, you could read this, at least get the basics of how you were going, and then you'd be able to leverage the cards that you pulled and then be able to build a deck. But I will say, well, random decks are really cool, especially for the collector and the gambler's premium. A product like Flesh and Blood's Classic Battle that has a set deck list and playable right out of the box, where it's 2 decks, because you'll notice that this was a light side only, which means in order for you and your friend to play, if you wanted a light side and a dark side deck, you were spending 2. And back in the day, these were probably $20, $25 a piece. So when you see $50 for this, think that you're spending 2 $20 decks, and on top of that, you're getting something that is giving you an introductory into Flesh and Blood. Now, is the price point a little high? Yes, I will admit I think that $50 is a little bit above the mark. But when you compare it to products across time, such as this, pretty much Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's 2022. I don't really know if they could have printed a product that would have been a $20 starter. We've already seen that with the Blitz decks. If they're charging $12 for a Blitz deck, and this is kind of almost like a Blitz deck, I believe it's the same quantity of cards, yes, they could have released it in 2 individual decks just like this and basically packaged it up, and the product may have been no thicker than a little box like that. But I believe that they were going for more of a flashy presence in a game store. They're also getting people into the game, and they're trying to maybe branch out from the typical what's going to be there for every set going forward, which is going to be your specialized heroes with a Blitz deck. I really do hope they go back to the CC decks at some point. But either way, I think so far as just a quick comparison of general games back to back, I know that that's not everything, and if I've missed something or misrepresented it, please correct me in the comments below. I'm not an expert on every single one of these games, but holistically, I still think that this product is great from what you get in the box compared to other brands of games that have existed to this point. So let's go ahead and switch to the overhead camera. And now we're going to go ahead and actually get into the Flesh and Blood Classic Battles. We're going to DVE left me. Boop, I've moved. And now we're going to get into what is inside the actual cards themselves. Alright, so let's go ahead and again just take a quick gander. You got the lore book here, and it looks like it's going to be something interesting. I'm going to read this probably tonight before I go to bed. That'll be kind of fun. But it looks like it does give you just some pretty decent information, and I'm glad that they're continuing this. Maybe in the future there'll be a compilation of a bunch of stories. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and rip in. Oh yeah, There you go. Oh, that's the noise. All right, so we're gonna, I guess we opened up Dorinthea first. So we'll go ahead and take a look at Dorinthea here. What do we get? You're starting with, you got your helmet. Ooh, this is a new one. This is gonna be the Blossom. And we're gonna go ahead and flip me, oops, right here. Get a close-up of that. So the Blossom of Spring is going to be a new generic chess piece. So that's going to be pretty sweet. That's exciting. You got your Gallantry Gold. And this one is, again, they're foil. And they do say DVR 5. So in this case, your equipment is indeed going to be foil. Just for the fun fact that I guess really in this case, they do give you one of each. And there is your cold foil hero. So there's your Dorinthea. And she has some very neat looking cold foiliness going on here. And as I look, they did make her a Majestic. I don't know if anybody's really talking about that, but that's kind of interesting that they stuck her at a Majestic. And then here is your Dawnblade. It does appear to be cold foils, so that's kind of interesting. I would have not suspected that. And again, it's a Majestic as well. Next up on the roster is your Mentor card. This is also Majestic, so that's pretty sweet. And looks like your last Majestic is Glistening Steel Blade, the Dorinthea specialization there. And that looks to be kind of the beginning of where we will go ahead and switch over to starting to talk about the cards from the overhead here. We'll probably want to put her into a sleeve and Dawnblade into a sleeve. Actually, I'm going to make sure to sleeve these up so that I can teach somebody that's never played Flesh and Blood how to play Flesh and Blood. And I think it'll be fun to use these to just basically test the theory that if you're new to Flesh and Blood, can you play and learn off of these decks? So watch for that video coming up very shortly. Looks like we're going to go ahead and you get a Ingrade. You get 2 of the red pitch there. And I should probably preface this with, it would be interesting to do a follow-up on this of cards that are in this deck that are basically brand new cards that didn't exist prior to this. So they have created, it looks like, new cards for us to go through. So you got Ingrade, 2 reds. You got Second Swing, Warrior's Valor, Sharpen Steel, which I know is a card that does exist. Run Through, this is a new card, as we have learned here recently. Ooh, this is pretty. Thrust, wow, that's pretty cool. And it's a generic. Ooh, that's going to be neat. It's a generic attack reaction. It also defends, so that's kind of nice. You got 2 of those. In the Swing, this was an Everfest card. I do remember that because the foiling on this guy in Everfest was just amazing. Looked like a lightsaber. That was really sweet. You got Iron Song Response. I believe that's definitely an old one. Driving Blade, Slice and Dice, which is the availability in Everfest for an extended art. You got the On Knife's Edge here. Your next sword attack this turn gains Go Again. It's kind of a cool one, and it's a generic. I love that they made them not specific to the class for some of these. That means that, in theory, if you have a sword, if they ever print swords for other classes, maybe my Mechanologist will get a sword. Maybe I could use it. Obviously, I doubt it, but maybe a mech will have a dagger thing, or I don't know. It could be useful long term. Let's see here. We got Out for Blood. You got Hit and Run, blue. You got Visit the Blacksmith. Look at the art on that one. There's a doggo. You got, looks like a neat little kind of quaint town with, looks like obviously maybe an armor set in there and a shield, and somebody's reading a book in the background of that one. But, there you go. You heard it here first, folks. Pets are confirmed in the game. We're going to be getting pets. So the World of Warcraft kind of style of stuff Confirmed. Just kidding. You got Blade Flash here. That's a generic attack. And then this is pretty sweet. Look at this. This is called Toughen Up. Now, Toughen Up is kind of unique here because it gives a new symbol I've never seen before. And that symbol looks like it is the symbol for a defense reaction. So going forward, I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see these defense reaction symbols on the defense reaction cards, or maybe in the future the reprints of some of the old defense reactions, like Sink Below, may end up getting those. This Sigil of Solace is different than the Sigil of Solace that's in WTR because it looks like it has a reminder text on it. So that's nice for new players that may not understand what an instant does. Flock of the Featherwalkers here. Oh, I've heard about these, and you may know because I love me some baubles. There is the new Titanium Bauble. And this design space opens up some interesting concepts. This is a pitchable and blockable card that, unlike where it says for the Bauble that it's not legally allowed to be played in your deck, this, and it's in a deck. It's a generic resource. This is ability to play in a deck. So why is that awesome? Maybe there's going to be another type of Bauble that's going to have a, let's say, a casting cost, but an attack, but no pitch value and no defense. So, you know, each corner of the card, well, we have been so accustomed to having the flexibility of having cards that have up to 4 abilities, so an attack, a defense, cast a cost, and a cast a pitch. Maybe they make one that's a blank pitch value, so like maybe a 0 pitch where it generates no resources, but it has an attack and maybe it costs something. Maybe that's something that they might go down. That would be kind of cool. Or they can introduce a 4th pitch value that's a 0, so it generates no resource. Just a hypothetical, but that's because I like baubles a lot. Maybe the Titanium Bauble is going to go through a transformation also, just like the other baubles that we've seen. So now, this is a Quicken token. I'm assuming that's going to be useful for Walker the Featherwalkers. And then you get a token here with Dorinthea. It's a full art. And then on the back here, it is a hint that PvE is definitely still on their minds with that artwork from that one card. Can you name it? Go ahead and put it in the comments below. I know you know what that is. I know what it is. It's a fun card. So that's what you get in the Dorinthea deck. And now let's go ahead and take a look at Rhinar. If you're still with me, I appreciate you staying here. I thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'm going through these a little bit slow, but that's because I'm enjoying every second of this, and I really hope you are too. So let's see here. Bone Visor. This is a new brute equipment for your head, and it has some substantially amazing artwork in there. So that's a new cool one. Looks like we're going to definitely double up on this Blossom of Spring, and yes, that generic chess piece is very pretty, and I cannot wait to find maybe a gold, a cold foil version of this one of these days. Looks like you're going to be getting an Ironhide gauntlet, and Ironhide legs, and here we go with Mr. Rhinar himself, and he is a cold foil, and he's majestic, and he is just a cool looking extended frame. That is just awesome. Now, it looks like this is packaged a little different, and we're getting his artwork in the middle here, and on the back of that it talks about Intimidate and how Intimidate works, so that's useful for new players. Here is the club that everyone is basically bashing on. Get it? Club bashing. Yeah, I'm sure it's not the best, but it is still another brute weapon option. You know, maybe something will make it better. Maybe not. Who knows? Next on the list is the Mentor, Chief Ruckatani. That's right, Luna. That's what I said. Can you say it? No. Okay. We got an Alpha Rampage, so that's a reprint. Kind of neat to see that, but kind of makes me wonder why they chose specifically that one to reprint. Switching to the other camera here. Alright, so we got, wow, Beast Mode. It is a 6 attack, so it's going to trigger some of your stuff here, and new artwork. Definitely cool. Pack Hunt. Remember that card. This one here, Bare Fangs, if I remember correctly, is a Everfest card. Wild Ride, again, Everfest. Wrecking Ball, I believe this is a new one here. This is the rare, so that's in the rare slot for us. You got Awakening Bellows, 2 of those. Pack Call, look at that. That's pretty sweet. Smash Instinct, and then now we got Smash with Big Tree with a blank empty text box. You know the very first thing that goes through my mind when I see this? I can't wait to go get an artist to do some cool sketch in the bottom of that. Like, it just asks for custom artwork, custom doodles. 2 of those. Next up is Muscle Mutt. It is a generic attack. Wow, that's cool. I'm sure that that could fit into another deck. I mean, it's not specific to Brute, so yeah, it costs 3 to play for a 6, but I'm sure that it'll see something, maybe. Who knows? That's kind of interesting. Raging Onslaught, there you go. Right there. Wounded Below, got 2 of those. Burrowing Beatdown, Rally the Rear Guard, which is going to give you a little bit of use out of some of those, you know, pitch to defend pieces. Wrecking Romp, Come to Fight, and then looks like this one is Clearing Below. Below has Intimidate with the action text on it. Then we got Dodge. You can see they use that same symbol once again. And Titanium Babos. So, that is what we got. Definitely an interesting selection of cards. Now, where does that put us holistically for, I guess, this starter and how it relates to you? Well, there's really 3 types of players that I see right now. You have the brand new player that's never been in Flesh and Blood, and frankly, while it might cost a little bit more than expected to get this versus getting somebody to give you a Blitz deck that somebody has created, you know, aka one of the kind of community-driven Blitz decks, or whether you go out and purchase one of the Blitz decks that are from, you know, Tales of Aria or Monarch, I see a place in this in basically every Flesh and Blood player's collection, whether you're a new player, an old player, because some of the cards in here, especially with the cold foils as a collector, would appeal to you. The only thing that I don't see that this fitting into is for somebody that really is hyper competitive. So unless there's a card in here that is going to be somehow a breakout card that's going to change the format or change something in maybe CC or Blitz, yeah, you could still go buy this, or you can go purchase the singles on TCG Player or through, you know, a vendor like myself. That way you can have those cards. But I also suspect that the value of the singles for these are not going to be as cheap as people think, because face it, a store has to still make the money back off the product if they're going to buy this. Are you done? You done barking? You done barking? Bark, bark? Okay. So now that the store has made their money back off of it, you know, that may mean that some of the cards just intrinsically, you know, while they might be cheap, a store's not going to want to sell just 1 or 2 cards out of it if their cost basis is pretty, you know, substantially high, especially for a $50 product. I don't know what the actual cost basis is, but even at 50% or 60%, that means that the individual cards have to add up to a total greater than that, or there's no reason for the store to break it out and sell the singles online. It gets interesting. So I very much appreciate your time today. I really hope that I'm going to share one more special thing with you, and it came as kind of a sad time when I could not get out to the New Jersey Pro Tour, but I was able to get some individual to be able to ship me the card that I have been very much hoping for, and that is the Yorick here. And we're going to go ahead and get my head out the way and go into the Yorick here. And I am so happy to be able to own a piece of Flesh and Blood history, and what makes this one even more special, and I am so thankful for the gentleman that did this. He was able to get James White himself to sign it, and that is just so amazing and special that I'm just proud to be able to have a little piece of Flab history. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Like, share, subscribe, hit that bell button, do all the things. We're still going to be opening our 36 packs to Uprising for History Pack here, and hopefully we'll continue to get some really cool stuff. We're going to keep doing reviews on products. We're going to get some other videos coming down the pipeline, so thanks very much, and until next time, have a good one. Three, two, cut here.